Here we are, Triple T, number 111, on February 13th, 2024. For those of you that were waiting to get for me to get this going, YouTube was like, yeah, we're going to make you prove to us you're you again. And while you're at it, do an update. And while you're downloading the update, we're going to resend and we're going to make you have to start all over again. So, other than that, so glad to see all you guys here for another Triple T. Hey, Mike, Linda, we got Mark, we got also, who else? We got Nancy. The reason I'm announcing these is because the people that are watching the video can only see the people with the camera on. So if you go back, for those of you that get a chance to go back and watch the video, or at least get it started, let it play so I can get some playtime, you'll notice that you only get to see the people with cameras on. So sometimes it looks like I'm talking to myself, which I obviously do a lot. And here I am talking even more. Haven't even introduced myself. My name is TJ Zebel. I call myself a professional problem solver, and I always follow that up with, no, I don't know everything. Don't claim to, never will, but I do have a unique way of asking lots of questions to help people find the solutions they're looking for. If I can't find the solution, I have a varied and very deep tribe of people that I can pick brains from to see if we can find you the answer you're looking for. I help people with all sorts of stuff. I offer corporate coaching and work with athletes from beginner all the way up to the pro level. Universe is sending me a whole lot of relationship stuff lately, and well, with us having Singles Awareness Day right around the corner, we'll be talking on that a little bit tonight. I also have a website, thetswb.com, thetallskinnywhiteboy.com, and I offer a free 30-minute consultation. That's your chance to get a hold of me, talk about anything you want. If you have any challenges you would like to work on, anxiety, phobias, PTSD, like I say, relationships, business stuff, that's what I help people with. Also, see what else. We are live on YouTube. Hi, Mom. And I appreciate all of you out on YouTube land. And for those of you that are checking out my YouTube channel, TSWB Helps, do me a favor. Go there if you haven't already. Click the subscribe button, ring the bell, put in some comments. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps me out. And helps my ego out a little bit. Yeah, I got one of those, but I try and keep it in check. What fun would it be if you didn't have a little ego? Also, tie of the night. We are on a tie, one tie per one. So we got more poo on the tie. And all of our friendly cast. And just before we got started, Lenora asked me, have you worn ties much before? Yes. When I had my photography studio, I was wearing ties all the time, which is why I have such a varied collection of these. It was a very easy way to build rapport with children of all ages, including grandparents. I even had a full collection of Disney socks and all sorts of stuff, because it was easier for some of my younger clients to see my socks than it was to look all the way up and see the tie, like the 1-year-olds and 2-year-olds. But enough about me. Let's see. Anybody got any cool stuff they want to share from the last 7 days before we get rolling? Anybody? Lenora.
I was sharing right before we popped on, and it'll be a topic for hour 2. I think I figured out one of the secrets of life, and that is to feel, literally to feel your emotions and to process them. And I had a number of breakthroughs last week. It was super awesome, and they just keep going, which is great. And finally, I came up with a morning routine and an evening routine, and I have stuck to it for 24 hours, and I am super excited about this. So I will keep you all posted on how this goes over the next week.
Awesome sauce. Thank you for sharing that. Holly.
So I don't know why, but when I'm on YouTube, I keep getting put into these NDE videos, which for those who don't know, that stands for near-death experiences. But this message that seems the universe keeps sending me over and over again this week has been, because at least the ones I was listening to, the thing they had in common was every person was at a younger time in their life when it happened. And when they got to the other side, every one of them had a moment where they kind of had to beg for the chance to go back to Earth because they realized that they had not fulfilled everything they wanted to fulfill. And it just kind of had that thought of, if I were to pass today, have I fulfilled? And because the big thing was, it's always, if you send me back, I'll make a better chance of it. I'll make sure I get those things. I'm going to make it a priority. So it was just kind of that check-in of, have I been making it a priority to get the things done that I want to get done? If I had that moment, how committed would I be? So,
and I'm glad you shared that, because that is one of the most universal, full-on life change, 180 degrees sometimes events that affects people, which is why Ken Guto came up with a brilliant protocol for his practice, and it literally is a near-death experience hypnotic protocol, and takes people in and allows them to basically experience it. And while they're there, it's like, would you like to come back? And if you would, what would you change? What would you do differently? And just like you say, people are like, whoa, been driving in first. Yep, wrong road, left turn, full throttle, hammer down. So, good stuff. Anybody else got anything they want to share before we dive into number 111? Yes, no, maybe so. Do-do-do. Okay.
I mean, I got more. I'm just going to hold off until hour 2.
You want to unload now or in hour 2?
I'll wait.
Okay, everybody heard it. Hour 2, we're going to start off with a full throttle. So I got to squeeze everything I can into the rest of the hour.
What do you think?
Tonight's topics: sad pies, what are you planting, and being alone. All right, Bob, I'll take sad pies for 400. What are not things you eat? Sad pies. Actually, it's a combination of acronyms. First one being, tomorrow is Singles Awareness Day. Yay! I don't remember exactly when I came across that one, but I've been posting it for years and telling people, and it's funny, the feedback, the replies I get, well, I'm married. And I'm said, well, then you're very aware that you're not single. And people who are single on Valentine's Day are very aware that they are single. And sadly, people that are in relationships feeling single are very aware of it on Singles Awareness Day, which is why I brought this up, because just in the same part of the near-death experience concept, life is meant to be lived. Being alone sucks. Feeling alone in a relationship sucks even more. Find ways to reach out, fix it, or move on. I know that sounds rough, but it takes work. I know. I've got lots of clients that I'm working with right now, and a couple of them are, well, I've dealt probably half a dozen or more clients who reached out to me while in relationships. A couple of them made it. They're doing extremely well, and a couple of them didn't, and they're doing extremely well. But life is meant to be lived. And the pies actually came from last Thursday. Savo asked me to teach his webinar for him because he had an event going on, and rather than cancel, he would rather just have somebody take over and run it. And Ben started the webinar out, and then I took over after he got done. And when he started it out, he wanted everybody to check in with pies. And pies stood for, I want you to give me a breakdown of how you're doing physically, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. Pies. I got to give him kudos. I thought it was awesome. And it really makes you, how you doing? I'm doing good. You feel good. When you take the time to, how are you doing physically? Can be one area. How are you doing intellectually? Which is still far different from the how you are doing emotionally and spiritually. And I thought it fit in really well with Singles Awareness Day, because there are going to be people tomorrow that are going to have to check in light of the situation that they're in, some of the ones that I pointed out. Happily in a relationship, not so happily in a relationship, not in a relationship, wanting a relationship, not wanting a relationship, all those different levels. And regardless of where you're at, where are you in regards to pies? Any ahas, inputs, epiphanies on that?
I like how he came up with an acronym for it. I've always said physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, but what did mine end up being? PMES. And I love that it comes out to pies. And I think it's such a quick, easy thing to remember. And you know what I think is strange? Because we'll say, how are you? And even when somebody, they're going through a tough time, I've started to say, like, how's your heart? How are you feeling? But if I say, like, how are your mentals? How are you spiritually? Like, some people don't resonate with it as much. I feel like, how's your heart? As in, how are your emotions today? People resonate with that a little bit more, but it's always tricky to say, I know you're going through a tough time. How are you doing with everything? Because it's not such a conversational thing. And I feel like it's such a personal thing to really ask somebody and for that person to feel comfortable to respond to you.
And I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people feel like they do not have anybody that they can talk to about this stuff. Even family members and close friends, because they don't want to draw them into the energy. And so they're doing it. I'm not going to share it with them because I want to protect them. And those of us that have had close family members and friends that we find out afterwards, how do we feel? Like, what? You should have told me. I'm tough. I'm big boy. I can handle it. And I think in my case, a lot of them look at like, well, you're going to do your thing. You're going to try and fix me. And yeah, I've been guilty of that because I am a fixer. I want to help people. But I also can be told I just need someone to listen. You don't need to fix me. In fact, I would prefer you don't try and give me suggestions. Just simply hear what I have to say. And my phone, I tell everybody, my phone is on 24/7. My wife has seen me get up at 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning, and go out and talk because somebody has to. Somebody, I will. Don't care. I'm a fixer. I got big ears, broad shoulders, and I'm like water repellent. I can handle it. I've had the shoulders of many shirts soaked in tears, and I'm all for it. So, pies. How are we doing? Physically, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. And if you have to write it down to make it a goal. When I've talked to, people about their year planner, that could be another thing that you can put on your January 1st, 2025. What's changed with your pies? Holly.
A couple things. My mind's racing a million miles a minute, of course, as always with everything everybody's saying. So one thing that kind of came to my mind is this is not a hard and fast rule, but if you take your pies inventory and you find out that it's not where you want it to be, shall we say, in a very unhealthy place. I'm specifically thinking of relationships, but this could be other areas of your life too. One of the thoughts that came to me is if it's not obvious what you need to do, the thing we want to do is almost when it comes to should I fight for this relationship or should I leave this relationship? I just kind of had this thought of it's almost always the opposite of what you want to do, because the thing that is unhealthy that doesn't require growth is the thing that we want to run away from. So for instance, if you're somebody who really depends, you're too codependent and you're willing to accept an abusive relationship, even though maybe it's softer abuse and you don't realize it, that's when you probably need to be running, and that's when you don't want to do it, because that's what growth looks like to you. But if you're somebody who likes to give up too soon and not fight for something that's worth fighting for, that's when you're going to come up with all the excuses of why you should cut loose. Yep. Now, like I said, I'm not talking about obvious situations. If you're in an obviously abusive situation, run out of it. But another thing, because you were talking about, watching somebody who's in it and it's not you, and you could see it. And, we talk about, I don't know if you call them narcissists or, I don't know the technical terms, One of the first things they do is they try to cut people off from their support system.
Yes.
And, one of the things I've been thinking about a lot lately too is just kind of the idea of, first of all, you have to respect when they're in that, they have to go through the process and they have to go through it at their own rate. Kind of what you were saying, if I'm not necessarily going to fix you if you come talk to me. That could be huge in helping somebody through that process. But the other part is now, if they're being really, really abusive and you have to cut distance because they're pushing your specific buttons, you do what you need to do to keep yourself safe. But if they're lashing out in a way that you can handle it, and it's not pushing your specific buttons, it's not making you a worse version of yourself. The best way I've learned, at least, I think on both sides of this, is if you refuse to buy into their frame, buy into their beliefs. So if you buy into it, if they are constantly, pushing on you because the person's trying to get you out of their life, you buy into it, you make all their fears real. You make the fact that you don't like them, you're not there for them is all real. But if you just refuse to buy into it and you stick around, I don't think there's any narcissist that can outweigh you because they have to contend with reality. Reality is not true, so I have to keep rebuilding the bubble, rebuilding the bubble, rebuilding the bubble. Whereas you can sit there in truth and just be there to counter the bubble. And you don't even it doesn't take that much effort. So, like I said, keep yourself safe. If it's something you can't do, then it's something you can't do. But if you want to know what to do for somebody you really care about, non-judgment, being willing to listen, not having to fix it, honoring their time, and then just staying there and keeping your truth and staying in your frame and not buying into theirs, I think is a very powerful way to respond to it.
Once again, you blow me away with your insights and knowledge. Thank you for sharing that. And one thing that I forgot to mention, so I'll mention it now, and I'll please remind me at the end in case I forget. Anybody out there listening to this, if they book with me for my Triple P protocol for relationships, and if you book it in the month of September, and you mention you heard it on Triple T 111, 50% off. But it has to be booked before the end of February 2024. And you don't have to, if you're watching the recording, if somebody sent this to you, if somebody mentioned this, if you know somebody that is in a relationship that is not where they want to be, especially if it's like non-existent, or if you know that they've been dating the same in a different meat suit, this applies to them. And being Kevin just popped on before I got to finish, I'll let you know real quick. I just announced that anybody that signs up, purchases the Triple P package for a relationship, because tomorrow is Singles Awareness Day, they get 50% off if they book before the end of February. All they got to do is say that they heard about it from Triple T 111, and you guys can share this with people that may need it. And this also qualifies, they will get the free 30-minute consult, because I'm not going to let them sign up if we're not a fit.
All right. And what is the price on that?
That depends on, I've got a couple of different packages, but depending on what, regardless, they'll get 50% off.
All right.
Cool. Wow. All sorts of fun stuff. And that brought us to the bottom of the hour, which means I've got 32 minis to finish 2 more before Lenora hits us with her incredible downloads. Yes, and I'm holding you to that. I see other nodding heads, so get ready for that. Any other input, ahas, epiphanies on sad pies? Who?
Why are they called SAD? Or Singles Awareness Day. Got it. Okay, sorry.
Singles Awareness Day.
Sorry, I was like, what did I miss? Okay,
Yeah.
got it. I thought they were supposed to be uplifting.
Yep, that was that little hook that gets people going, what?
Sounds like a. Now I think of like a sad pumpkin pie.
And Nancy asked, can you talk about the loneliness part next, or was it just being lonely? I don't fully understand the question, Nancy. Could you? I want to make sure that I answer it correctly. Oh, being alone. So you want me to skip what are you planting and jump into being alone? They kind of segue together, but special requests. One of the advantages of being on the on the call, being alone, and this came from a place where I get a lot of my topics. One of my clients who actually graduated Triple P, and one of the big downloads that she got from that is for the first time in her life, she realizes that she is enough. She loves herself so much that being alone doesn't scare her. And she also realized how easy it is to meet people. Now understand, she doesn't live in a metropolis. She lives out in the country. She has to drive, and the next town that she goes to, it may not be a one-horse town, but they're sharing the 4 that are there. And even still, she's found the protocol. She's learned to forgive her exes, well, her one ex, and a couple of guys that she dated after that. Same in a different meat suit, which is why she finally got to such a low point in her life that she knew that she just needed to change something, because she was so lonely and so angry and bitter and fighting with her ex, and her kids couldn't stand her, didn't want to be around her, because again, she was so angry and had so much anger at her ex. And through going through Triple P, she was able to forgive her ex and let go of the anger, let go of the programming from her parents, and is at a point now where she said she went to Mardi Gras with some of her friends and said her energy is so different now. She has a new challenge, shall we say. She has to avoid looking certain people in the eye, because they will just like, oh, you got to come party with us. You got to come with us. I want to be with you. I want to marry you. And she's like, and they're good looking people. Like, her energy has changed that much. And after the weekend, when she got home, she said it struck her how different it felt for her to go home, to her little ranch, to be by herself and spend some time just realizing her blessings, and how much she loves her new life and loves her new outlook. And so I chose the topic being alone right in line with pies. What are your pies like when you're alone? What are your pies like when you're out with friends? What do you want your pies to look like, feel like, sound like when you're with your person? And that going through Triple P made it very clear to her, because she found herself getting hijacked. And in the topic that we covered through Triple P, what was it, 2 ago? No, last week, number 110, getting hijacked. Where she met a couple of guys and they were putting on really good masks, selling a good show, shall we say. But because she has such different energy now and she's not desperate, she got to take the time to test and watch their actions and dissect their words and realize that at best, one was a hijack, the other one was about a 9, and one that was putting on a good show, talking a good talk, a salesman, a professional salesman, was actually about an 8. But a good looking dude. I mean, But when she took the time to protect herself and ABT, always be testing, always be testing, always, always, always be testing, she was able to look past the good-looking, rugged facade and inside go, wow, you show a king, but inside you an 8. And I almost got hijacked. Down say, bye-bye, bye-bye, bye. Give the little queenie, bye. Don't let the drawbridge hit you on the head on the way out. Bye-bye. Any input, ahas, epiphanies on that? Holly?
Yeah, something. I know I talk a lot, but just the thought of, I think that this is a big part of why the 3 magic questions and echo technique can be so powerful. Because if, you talk about, a lot of people talk about that you could talk to somebody and they seem so attractive and then you get to know them and they're not attractive anymore. Mm-hmm. And you talk to somebody else who may not seem that attractive and you get to know them and all of a sudden they are more attractive.
Yep.
I think a lot of that comes down to when, in order to judge anyone, I think you need to see their passions. And that's when you're going to see, and some people what they're good at, what brings out their shen is being in a bar and hanging out with people or going to parties and hanging out with people. Yes. But that's why, that drummer that is so socially awkward and everybody ignores him. And then he gets on stage with the band. All of a sudden he's the hottest guy ever, It's because he's now in his shen is shining out everywhere. He's in his passion. He's in his element. And I think that's where a lot of this, where you get hijacked, is you fall for the outer, and you didn't actually bother to see, do they have passions? What do they look like when they have passions?
120% spot on again, which is why all of my clients get taught the trifecta. Echo talk, 3 magic questions, values and criteria, elicitation. because I not only want them to be able to overcome their demons and challenges and stuff like that, I want to equip them with the best tools to go out into the world to interact with humans in their natural environment and protect themselves while enjoying interacting with humans in their natural environment. Even the full-on introverts, they benefit from the trifecta, because at some point you're going to interact with humans unless you decide to be a shaman yogi up in and take a vow of silence for. But even then, at some point, like you can echo talk sign language. Just saying. And so again, that's why, especially Triple P, they get tested on the trifecta. And I can always tell when they get it, because the story changes, or the checkup is like, so how you been? So, it works. Like, I know. No, like, really, it works. I mean, like, you wouldn't believe it works. I'm like, that's why I teach it. Yeah, but like, no, for real. I'm like, that's why I do it. Because when it sinks in, when it hits, when it's working, it seems like magic, which is why I'm constantly saying that it needs to be taught to every human on the planet right after they learn how to say mama, dada. There would be a lot less misunderstanding, a lot less fighting, a lot less tension, a lot less anxiety. I think there would be a lot less divorces. I think there would be a lot better unions, a lot better marriages, because you'd be like, "Hey, you're not a king. You're not a queen. I mean, you're good looking, you're fun, and I enjoy it, and I've got a place for you in my kingdom. I have a place for you in my tribe, but you are not the one for here." And I think it also helps people realize, when you are well versed in the trifecta, it is so easy to meet people, because it's so easy to talk to anybody. I don't know how many times I've you're still on the phone with that telemarketer? Yeah. Because it's practice. It's a human being. It's a human voice who deserves, God bless him for. I've gotten in some pretty cool conversations with some telemarketers, and none of them said that was their passion. What are you passionate about? Oh, I've always wanted to sit in a cubicle with 50,000 other guys in a sweaty cubicle so that we can all call up people and get yelled at and hung up on. That just, ugh. Most of them are just doing it because they couldn't think of anything else that their skill sets could handle. And like me, they all seem to have this funky addiction to eating food and sleeping indoors. And if being a telemarketer keeps them off the streets, So I'll chat with them. And again, what better place to test Echo Talk and 3 magic questions, values and criteria elicitation? Because you were going to hang up on them anyway. Yes, I see that motion.
I just wanted to add back to lonely and feeling lonely. And, you mentioned that your client had said they now know that they are good enough and that they have such a deeper understanding of their value. And I think that's a great thing. And I also wanted to add, for anybody who's listening, even when you're in a relationship, it does not mean that those two people in that relationship think they're good enough. I do think that doing the personal work, and I wish there was a better word for it other than inside work, or really learning to care for your emotions and to take care of your emotions and to take care of your thoughts and your perceptions and to really examine them and spend time with them is, I think, for me, the best thing that anybody could ever do for themselves in their entire life. It is such a truly self-care component that is not taught in this culture, which is heartbreaking. And it is something that will help you advance in every single area of your life. So I'm thrilled for your client. And I would encourage everybody that is willing to listen to really take care of how you feel and take the time to invest in people who care so much about how you feel to help you feel better.
Amen. Capital letters, underlined, neon lights. One of the things I've been saying since I was young, especially when I was bartending and watching, one of the things about bartending, I did a lot of bar chair therapy. Back before I knew all sorts of stuff like this. I didn't know that these were tools. I just knew that I liked to listen and help people. But one of the things that I've said, being lonely when you're single sucks. Being lonely when you're in a relationship sucks 1,000 times more. And if you can't love yourself, it makes it even harder, because you're the one that you're stuck with in your head your entire life. And some of us can be downright nasty, brutal inside that gray matter in our thick skull. And we accept all these lies and stories from others. And some of them, we accept them as bold-faced, absolute truth. And when I'm working with my clients and I'm like, who told you that terrible lie? And we go back and, oh, my best friend when I was 5 told me. And I went, you're still listening to a 5-year-old today. Yeah. Perceived perception. And we need some help, because if we could take care of it on our own, I would have a lot lower clientele list. Even therapists need therapists, because it's really hard sometimes to be the driver and the passenger in the same vehicle. And trust me, there are so many times that, you know, I'm sitting there giving advice to a client, and in the back here it's going, ooh, you know, you should try that. I'm like, yeah, but we're working with them right now. Hush. So that was our jump to being alone. Any other inputs, ahas, epiphanies, question on that before we finish up with 10 minis to go on what are you planting? Anybody? No? Okay. Now, what are you planting? Here in North America, there are some areas that are actually looking at planting stuff already. I know up in the Northland where I was born, it's a little early about thinking about putting stuff in the ground and expecting it to come out. But I also know that some of the stuff you have to pre-plan, pre-purchase, pre-start inside or in greenhouses or stuff like that if you're going to expect to have results this year. And when you think about other crops like bamboo, there are certain types of bamboo that once you plant it, it has to be watered every single day for over 5 years before you see anything. Talk about a crop of faith. You don't know what's going on there. You can't dig down to check it. You just know that you've signed an agreement. I am going to put you in the ground, and I agree. I'm going to come here, and I'm going to water you every day for at least 5 years on the hopes that what I planted is good, on the hopes that the seeds that I put in are still good. The funny thing about that bamboo, though, once it starts, it grows so crazy, so fast, so prolific, that you better have your clientele ready to start accepting delivery of the goods. Now, what if that was self-work, self-help? Who gets to benefit from that? I think anybody that's around you. Pretty much the world. Will it happen overnight? That'd be nice. But most people don't come to me when they're between the ages of conception and 5 to 7 years old, when most of the programming is put on our hard drive, or between 7 and 23 when some of the most wonderful comments and ideas and thought processes about actual life communication and dating are set in. No, we wait until the check engine light comes on. The Mr. Fix It in a Bottle doesn't work. The great advice from our friends and family proves to be not so great. The bartender probably gave us the best advice, but depends on how many shots we also got from the bartender as to whether or not we remember exactly how they said it and whether or not we'll actually follow through on it. So when is a good time to till up the garden, redesign it, and plant something new? Yeah, but I've had that garden growing for my entire life. I know. You got some weeds in there. And there's a couple of plants in there that, even though they're pretty, they're not feeding you. So bouncing back to January 1st, 2025, how would you describe the garden that you got to plant in 2024? What did you take out? What area did you till up and replant? How did you take care of the weeds that have been growing? Are you angry because rose bushes have thorns? Or are you grateful that thorn bushes have roses? Ooh, same plant. Depends on how you look at it. And are you planting any crops that feed you? Any ahas, epiphanies, inputs, comments on what you're planting?
Yes.
Thanks, Mike. Very good perspective. Appreciate that. So
I think this goes so well with so many things, especially because of I was trying to come up with like a cool name. I think it was sunrise setup and then sunset slowdown or something, but then I started to get tied in with sunrise sunset, and that just stressed me out because I don't care for the song. But anyway, setting my day up for success, I'm now thinking of it as, what are you planting? Especially when you had mentioned watering it every day. And so I would often, I think I've mentioned this to you guys before, triage. So if something was coming up, I would deal with it. But now in this, so what my intention is to journal for gratitude, but also to acknowledge what emotions are coming up, because I tend to wait until they're overwhelming me versus simply acknowledging them and navigating through them in a more effective manner. And then also really focusing in, I know we've talked about Bankston's method on here quite a bit, but also with really focusing on what I want to create in my life. Somebody's wanting to create a relationship, you're making time to picture that and spend time with it, not just once a day, twice a day, and really cultivating those feelings. So this is why I had mentioned at the very beginning, I think one of the keys is that it's a feeling universe, because we have to feel the things that may be tough or something that we don't necessarily want to feel, but we have to be able to process them. And then also being able to feel into those other components that we do want to create, so that we can continue to enhance that connection between the conscious mind and the subconscious, but also with the non-physical, and it all comes back to feelings. And we can communicate in pictures and sounds and all that lovely stuff, even though we have words, but we communicate in pictures and sounds. But the bridge is, how are you feeling? And then being able to move through that. So they go hand in hand for me. I very much enjoy this one.
Awesome. Just a sec, Holly. One thing that one of my squirrels delivered to me before I forget. In regards to near-death experience, would that be almost like having a tornado coming through and absolutely flattening the field? Cleaning out the garden, and you're like, whoa, but I guess I'm going to replant. Holly.
They're good, and I love everything. Lenore said everything Titi just said. I love this analogy, partly because my mind is now expanding it out too. One of the things I'm thinking about is, first of all, one of the things I was taught quite young was that you want to give the land a rest if you want to have really good crops. And so you schedule in, maybe I'll have 7 different gardens and I'll rotate one that gets a year off every single year. But also something else that kind of came to me is, the growing season has multiple phases. You've got the early phase where maybe you have faith that you don't see anything, you just planted. Then you've got kind of the growing phase where you can see stuff coming and you need to take care of it. But then I guess you got 4. Then you've got the harvest phase. And then if you live in a normal place, you also might have a winter phase. And I just think all 4 of those kind of have a place. Some people maybe just don't have the faith to go out and, plant when they don't know what's going to come up. Some people, when they get into that growing, it might just be taking forever for them. But a lot of people, I think that we need to focus on too is we do all the work. They're so into, I need to work, but I don't deserve rewards. So they do all the work to plant, all the work to grow. And then when it comes to harvest season, they feel guilty harvesting. And so, it's okay to go through the harvest. And then the other thing is, winters come. And you plan for that. And so, when we hit a winter, it's not, obviously if you have a hurricane, that's a very different thing too. We know those things can happen too. But winters are part of the natural process. And as long as we plan, it's okay for it to be part of the natural process. And that's also why you plant different kinds of crops. Like my mom, between January, late January and early February, that's when she plants the peas, because that's when they need to be planted. Whereas tomatoes, I know the rule is never before May 15th in our growing season. So, that's another reason why you want to have variety in your life too. You're not planting just one thing at any given point. So anyway, I know I'm pushing it far, but it just...
Oh, no. Keep going.
As far as I've taken it.
See, this is what I'm talking about, and I had a squirrel deliver me a little aha on the winter part in regards to being alone. When you have harvested enough and your pantry is full enough, winter doesn't scare you nearly as much. When you have planted crops, harvested enough in yourself, being alone doesn't scare you near as enough because you've got a bountiful harvest of self-love, self-respect, and it's not going to last forever. Spring is right around the corner. So, what are we planting this year? What do you want to look back at on the harvest for 25? Yes.
Love that you guys just mentioned seasons. Oh my God. Excellent point.
That's why I like the group we have here. We have fun, and that puts us into the second hour. So guess who's up? No waiting for no polite squirrels. We've already
So, one of the things that I got a download on the other day, guys, was what if thoughts are rooms? I was I was experiencing something and I was having a conversation with the younger part, and I had said to her, I said, "Well, what if this is just a room? That this thought is just a room that you're still in and you don't need to be here anymore." And I said, "Can you leave the room?" Just thinking thought that just really wasn't helpful and it was in conflict with another one and just blah, blah, blah. So she looks around and then she walks out the damn door. Could not believe it. I was like, how did I not think of this before? Not only did she walk out the door, she then walked down the hall to a better serving room. So, especially when it comes to your perceived perception, and I've had a slew of thoughts that have definitely not been helpful to me in my life. And what if it was just a perceived perception at the time, and now you're just in a room that you can leave? One of them that I was also stuck on was when I was, think 22, 23, I watched the movie The Secret, which I often refer to as the infomercial of Law of Attraction. And in my very juvenile state of whatever they were sharing, I took it and I took it as nearly as gospel, and then proceeded to try and fit everything else that I have learned in the last 15 plus years into this room, and it doesn't fit. So when I had finally realized, what if I can just come out of the room? I know more now, so now things can be different. Also, another thing about rooms is if there's not a door, there can be a window. And I thought that was really helpful too. So if we can start thinking of these thoughts as rooms, it may be easier to step out because you could then be in two rooms. And really, you just need to go into one serving room, not be stuck in half the space. So that was one that came to me. What are your thoughts?
Holly.
Oh, I love that analogy. It's kind of bringing up some thoughts. So first of all, I will say I think that it could be thoughts, but it could also be kind of, I like what you said about The Secret, because I've had that same experience with so many people of, it's revolutionary when you get it. I love calling it the infomercial of the law of attraction, and that a lot of things fit into it, but not everything does. But you could also say, like if it's a room, I could keep some rooms. When I was younger, I watched a TV show called Doctor Who, where he had rooms where he could actually move them around and delete rooms and stuff. So it's kind of thinking too, like I've got the room, but I've also got the whole house, and I can delete, I can move things around. You could also maybe call certain rooms for categories of thoughts as well, and think of the thoughts of, because then you could say, okay, the room stays, but this particular thought gets kicked out. But it also,
like a piece of furniture?
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Or wallpaper. Maybe I'm going to change the color of the wallpaper or redecorate.
Oh.
Update all my belief systems to the newest version with the latest technology that I have available to me. It also reminded me, though, oddly, of a dream that I once had. And I mean, it's so bizarre. We'll see if this even makes any sense. But it was kind of like I had these rooms, and I realized at this building that I was in, and obviously very dreamy, but the same room existed on multiple levels. And when I go into the different rooms, one was the fake room and one was the real room. But you could, unless you were paying attention, you thought you were in the real room when you were in the fake room. And it just kind of had this, I don't know why, but it just kind of popped up of like sometimes when we have a belief, because what it was is there were several different rooms. So as you would go down, you'd get to closer to the real. It would just get more real every single layer you went down. And I just kind of had that thought of doing it layers, or once again, just remodeling of as we get, closer and closer, the cleaner and cleaner and more accurate they get, the more refined they get, the better. Because the room would get more beautiful, more vibrant every single layer you'd go down. Another thing that was interesting is time would get slower. And so you'd be able to just sit in the room and perceive it better. And so anyway, I don't know if that will mean anything, but it just pulled that memory back up for me when you said that.
Well, I love that because I was thinking of, how we've also talked about your castle, your kingdom. And I feel like that matches really well, especially because you had different levels.
I love
Nice
animate.
one.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And this ties right in with a lot of the protocols that I use with my clients. And a couple of different ones are, ironically, not ironically, of course, Mike just brought up in the chat that you guys can't see on the recording. Also, what if there is a way of expanding your peripheral awareness, expand the kinesthetic space to make the room larger or change according to your needs, including a spot for your control panel, Richard Bandler? I have always had the control room, and I would have people go to the control room, and I would make sure that there's a big security door on there, and they get to put whatever security device. Now that we've watched enough missing or missing MIA, all of these spy movies where retinal scans and heat scans and palm scans and DNA scans and all the above. So they would be able to have their own security system, but when they go in, that's where it houses all of the energy control for them. Their financial thermostats would be in there. The display would help them. I got some questions, and it's funny. They would ask me a question. I go, okay, let's go into the control room. Type that into the display and see what pops up. Answers, and once they get used to going into the control room, their higher self can talk to them and deliver answers to them so fast. And they're thanking me, and I'm like, I just helped you find where the control room is. You're getting all these downloads and answers and epiphanies, and we also have the hologram deck where they can go in the hologram deck and bring out avatars of people that they want to question or learn from or find out about. And if this is the first time you've ever seen Planet TJ, I know. Sounds a little but the amount of change work that people have been able to get through these metaphors is why I do it.
Absolutely testimonial. Totally on it.
And on another one, when I work with students, high school and college, one of the things that I teach them for memorization is understanding that you don't put all of your information in one room. I ask them, is there a living area, a house, an apartment, whatever, that you've lived in long enough to where if the power went out in the middle of the night, dead of dark, no moon, no nothing, it is pitch black, can't see, you are instantly blind, that dark, but you could still walk through the house. You would know the length of the hallway, you know how many steps are on the stairs, you know where the bathroom is, how to get to the garage, all that stuff. If you had a place that you knew that well, where would you start putting your information? Where would you, and the first thing I ask them, where would you put all of your ability to cook? All your cooking skills, where would that be? In the kitchen. You wouldn't put it in the bathroom. I mean, some might, I don't know, maybe they're bad cooks, but I digress. And I'll ask them, where would you put the memories and knowledge and lessons from interacting with the family? A lot of them say the living room. Well, now when you go to school, pick a room where you're going to put math. Okay, math is upstairs, down the hall, third room on the right. Okay, where are you going to store the information from this class? Which wall, which shelf? What color will the book be? What does the book feel like? And now when it's time for them to take a test in math class, they sit down, they do some breathing techniques, some focus techniques, they take the test, and now when they are reading the question, they're not running through the entire house trying to figure out where that information is. They know they go in the house, they go up the stairs, down the hall, third room, on the right, this wall, third shelf down, it's going to be in the blue book. And they open it up and the information is there. And I've had a couple of them that blow my mind. I had one college student that literally sit down while taking the test, and I taught him, do you give a rip if your other classmates think you look really weird when you read the question, you go, and you write the answer. He can literally see the page with the answer on it. And his grades shot way up. What a concept. So when you brought up rooms, I had not thought about where you're going to put your thoughts. I was putting knowledge, information, and lessons. And now with all the other VACOG things we can add to it, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory, add as much of that in there, now you have even more control. Anybody else got any ahas, inputs, epiphanies, questions?
Sorry, quick one, since nobody else is raising their hand. I was just thinking the movie Inception might be onto a little bit of this, this idea. But I mean, it was more worlds than it was rooms. But yeah, I think that's definitely a thing.
Perceived perception.
And I like Mike's, and always know where your go bag is with all of your self-sufficient needs in case of an emergency is located. And in a protocol like this, what might we have in our go bag? Lessons and understanding that we are enough, that we've survived, that today is such and such date with the year such and such time, and the fact that I can see that on the clock and I can hear my voice means I have survived 100% of everything life has ever thrown at me. There's not one single thing from my past that I am not stronger than. So, good opener to the second hour. And it's all more. 17 minutes after, so yeah, we're gonna, what else we got?
If nobody else has anything else, I have something else.
Bueller? You
guys are so quiet tonight.
Mm-hmm. What you got?
Timelining. In the sense of I had really struggled with writing down what and why I wanted and manifesting and leaning into manifesting. And I was in a conversation with somebody. They were asking me questions and they were pointing out whenever I went to the how. Like, nope, you put your conscious mind aside. Just keep coming back to what and why. Come back to what and why. And they had shared with me the 80-20 rule, and I'm sure I may have heard it before or something, but this time it was just full on fireworks. And 80% is our job. We need to know what, and we need to know why. And then the how part is 20%, and that's up to the universe, and we have no control over it. And even if we might have a thought process on how it might come about, we may be completely off base. Now, the way that I got this part of my brain to calm down is the what and the why is a lot like plugging in the components on your GPS, on your reticular activating system inside your brain. I'm like, okay, GPS, I can handle this one. I use a GPS. I can't find my way to the grocery store without it. So I use GPS. The 20%, will there be traffic? Will there be an accident? Not sure. But I know as long as I keep focusing on following the directions and the what and the why, I will eventually get to my destination. I can't tell you how long it'll take. I can't tell you how long traffic will take to clear. I can't tell you anything else. But as long as I keep focusing on the what and the why, the destination, the reticular activating the reticular activating system, 20% is up to the universe, and I can let the hell go. And this was a huge thing for me. So the reason it was so big is, and we talk a lot on here about write down what you want, write down why you want it. And for me, as fun and excited I am by the voices in my head, and as good as I have gotten to manage them and help people manage them, this one could not stop chirping in my ear, going, oh. She finally shut up, guys. Like, whew. To the point that I wrote for 5 pages in a journal without a little blip of a how coming out, which was huge, absolutely huge. So now, part of my morning, my evening routine is revivifying this, or rereading my what and my why, and being okay with, I don't know how, I'm okay. It's only traffic. I've been in traffic before, and that's perfectly fine. And I've managed to get myself to every destination that I have attempted when I'm driving. I thought that was really, really helpful. I am so hopeful that this is helpful to you guys too. And let me know your thoughts.
Real quick, Holly, for those that are tuning in that have no idea what the reticular activating system is, could you give a quick explanation of that?
In short, it's the part of your brain that keeps sorting for things. So if you got in the car and you were going to go purchase a car and you're like, I want to get a blue RAV. I've never seen any blue RAVs anywhere I go. And now you've purchased yourself a blue RAV, and suddenly your reticular activating system is chirping away going, oh, blue RAV, blue RAV, blue RAV, blue RAV. And now you see them everywhere you go because now you're sorting for it.
Exactly.
Part of the brain.
Holly.
All right. So hopefully I will say, I love what you're saying, but I will put an addendum on it based on my experience. So for the how, what I think is going on with the how is that we lock ourselves into a how if we're focusing on the how. But you have to be careful to make sure you're not going the other direction, in that when the universe shows you the how, you need to grab it, if that makes sense. So for instance, let's say I want this new car and it costs $20,000 or whatever, and I get focused on I need to get the $20,000. Well, maybe I am supposed to go into a car dealership and they're having a drawing and I'm supposed to win it in the drawing, or, there could be a million other ways it's going to come to me. But when I get to the car dealership and I see they're having a drawing for the car that I want, I still need to fill out that, card to enter the drawing. So there's still, even though we don't put the how on our visualization, we still need to be ready to take action when the opportunity presents itself to us. And basically, like you're saying, if it's on our visualization, we're going to be much more aware when those opportunities come up, because that's what we're focusing on. That's what we're looking for. So it's not that we don't ever do the how. It's not that we just sit back passively and let it happen. It does take action, but it's taking the act. It's being aware of, this could come to me 50 different ways. I just need to be awake. And then also I'll throw in another, I always give the universe a place of, if this is something that would not be a good idea for me to manifest and there's something even better, let me show me that opportunity too. And I'm not going to be pissed off that I got something even better rather than the thing I was asking for.
Spot on, capital letters, underline, neon sign, all the above, absolutely. And I'm going to add to that a little bit to that about the vehicle part. The feeling is a lot of the fuel. A lot of people will write something down, but they don't take the time to envision what it's going to feel like when it comes to fruition. What is it going to feel like when they have that item? The more you can get in touch with how it feels, the more fuel you have to get to that destination in the GPS. And I like how Mike added in the chat. I find if I'm stressing out and looking back, I was chunked down too far. When I can chunk up away from the details, I'm more comfortable. And Mike, do you have a chance to jump on the mic and explain that a little bit for people that don't speak NLP with us?
Well, of course. I have ADD and autism, so I spend a lot of time kind of in my mind, and I grew up in a unhealthy family dynamic. So when I find myself caught up in the details, it takes a lot of my energy away. So I just don't have the energy reserve, bandwidth, or amperage to be able to stop and collect myself of what's going on, because I'm dealing with all the details and all the things that are going on in my mind. If you stop and you take a step back in your mind from that position to not the actor on the stage, but on into the audience midway back in the theater, you get further back from the details and you can see a larger picture. And that will, when I'm not surrounded by the trees, the details, and I'm able to see the forest as a whole from the hilltop or from the field beside, I'm able to put things into better perspective and be able to see where I am in this middle of the stress and can take the evaluation of whether or not it is really that big. And it also gives me the perspective of, or the vision of where I can move forward with it. That makes sense?
Absolutely. Great explanation. Thank you so much. And Thursday, when I was teaching on Savo's webinar, the topic that I chose was timeline manipulation, which we've covered here on Triple T. And for those of you that are like, oh, go back through the archives and it should be labeled. But one of the ones that I got really good feedback from the people on the call was when I had them take their timeline and grab both ends of it and squish their timeline down to the width of their shoulders so that they could see conception all the way to end of days and find that little speck that is today. And when you look at that, was that driver that flipped you off really that big of a deal? Was da-da-da-da-da really that big of a deal? Is waiting another 2 to 3 weeks for the universe to drop off your manifestation really that big of a deal? puts it into perspective. The other part, we had a couple of people on the call that had kids. And I said, here's another thing. If you have kids, when were they born? When will they be moving out of the house? That's how much time you have with them. Your parents, how much older are they than you? Where might they be on their timeline? What do you want to say to them? What do you want to share with them? What do you want to do with them before their timeline and yours is still here?
Super powerful.
So, any ahas, inputs, comments on that?
I have a quick question about timelines.
Okay.
How do we know if they're in front of us or behind us, or how do you figure out where somebody is in time when they're talking about their timeline?
Pay attention to. I guess we're going to dive into timeline a little bit. For those of you that have never heard of timeline, basically, if you could take everything that you have experienced and are going to experience, run a thread through it, snap it, straighten it out, so you've got everything from conception to end of days, which I call, it sounds a little better than leaving your meat suit, or death, end of days. So here's everything that you have in your life, and if you are standing in the ditch watching it go by like a slow-moving freight train, where you can see every second of every minute of every hour for your entire life, the people that typically orient their timeline that way are the people that are the planners, because they're watching the time go. I like to joke, they're the ones whose day planners have day planners, because they can also look down their timeline and see what's coming up. Oh, in 3 hours, I've got to have this ready because there it is and I got to be on time. Oh, there's 2 months away. I've got to be prepared for that because I've got to get all these other things done because it's coming. Time is going here. Then I have the people, as part of the exercise, rise up over their timeline, lower themselves down into the timeline so that it's flowing to them through their heart and going on. These are the people that are experiencing life now. They feel the feels, they smell the smells, they experience everything. The little challenge with them is they have a tendency to lose track of time. These are the people that can be notoriously a little late. Sometimes by, November. They are really fun to be with, can be a little emotional at times because they are truly feeling time. They also have a strong tendency to look forward to the future. That's where they're facing. With the exercise, I also have them turn around 180 degrees and now their timeline is coming through their heart heading this direction, and they can see all the way back to end of days. When we did the exercise the other night, one of the people on the call said that when they did this, it made them feel really sad. And a lot of reflection going on. A lot of people, a lot of my clients, when I have them do this, will say it felt like time was slipping away from them. A lot of people dealing with depression and anxiety, however, this felt comfortable to them. They were focused on the past. They looked at the peaks and the valleys and mostly focused on the valleys. And they forgot about the fact that you've already survived the valleys. There isn't a single valley back there that was too strong for you that you could not traverse. And knowing that, they also forgot to notice how high the peaks were. And when I get them to focus on the peaks, I'm like, get the fog out of the way. Look, some of the best mountaintops are hidden by the clouds because they go up that high. Well, I thought it was just fog. It's just the clouds. Let the sun shine in. And then you can decide how you want to colorize the valleys. You've already survived them. So if they were flooded back then, why leave the flood in there? You can drain them. Most valleys are some of the most prolific, best growing areas for crops anyway, because that's where all the richest dirt settled. Well, if you've already survived it, wouldn't it be cool to have a very prolific valley feeding you now? And after I have them examine that, then I'll have them reach their hands out, grab their timeline, squish it down, width of the shoulders, we've already covered that, to put things into perspective. And after they've gotten used to the perspective, then I will have them crunch it down nice and small and put it right into the center of their heart. And experience what it's like to have your entire timeline right inside of your heart. And I watched a few people on the call totally blissed out. Woo! Awesome! And I said, yeah, this is when you want to zen. Great place to put your timeline for meditation. Great place to put your timeline if you want to sit with that special somebody and watch like a sunset. Oh. And you'll definitely lose track of time with your timeline right inside your heart. But it's also a great way to go to sleep at night. Because everything's there. You are safe. Every high, every low, all your lessons that have been and will be are safe inside of your heart. And then I have them play with all of the different ways they can do it and understand it's understanding how to use the tool. There are times where it's beneficial to have your timeline spread out in front of you moving past. And the other cool thing that you can do with that then is you can take your timeline and stretch it out 10 times as long. And I had a few people on the call went, oh, cool. Because time slowed down and they could pay even more attention. And I also taught them that you can take a packet of energy that you would like coming down. Good. Put it 10 minutes in the future. What's the color of a big, lovely, warm hug from your favorite person? Well, gather up a bunch of that energy, put it in the train car 10 minutes down, spread it out for about an hour or 2 or 12, and then just sit back and get ready. Grab yourself a nice cup of whatever, get comfy in your favorite comfy chair, and then all of a sudden 10 minutes you're like, oh, because you can. Why not? The other thing I pointed out is utilizing it as a tool, understanding what works for you and when is best. So I had one client who we designed a little, you know how they do the railroad switchers and stuff? So when he was leaving the house in the morning, it would switch the railroad track so it went straight across in front of him so that he at work could be on time, keeping track, have everything da-da-da-da-da. And when he came home and walked through the front door, switched it so that it was coming through his heart so he could be present with his kids and his wife and his family. And then when he climbed into bed to go CP9I with his awesome bride, it shrunk everything down, put it right there in his heart, and he could bliss out and be there. So utilize your timeline. Learn how to play with it and use it to its fullest benefit because it's there. Any questions, ahas, epiphanies, comments? Yeah?
How can you infuse it the night before for the day of, for the next day? What would that look like? Or what might that look like?
Exactly. What might that look like? Because yeah, because you're in control. You can set it up however you want. If you have a day, let's say if tomorrow were Saturday and you didn't have to work, what would be the best orientation for it?
In time.
For you.
For your heart.
Might as well enjoy. It depends. Do you have a bunch of stuff that you got to get done?
True.
Do you have friends and family coming over that you want to enjoy the experience? Now, are they friends and family that you really like hanging out with? Or are they friends and family that you're like, it's gonna, I know they're coming over. Well, then you can decide, do you want your timeline shrunk down so it goes through really fast? So time is just like, oh, it's already time to go. Okay, bye-bye, catch you later, bye-bye. Or do you really enjoy being with them, and can you grab your timeline and stretch it out so that those 2 hours or 3 hours that you get to spend with them feels like 10 hours of pure quality time?
One thing that I often say is at any point, time is on my side. Time is on my side. So whether I wanted to speed up or slow down. Time is on my side. Time is on my side. And I found that to be really helpful. But I also like the idea of infusing it. And I've always liked the way that you infuse the timelines from conception, and even thinking about infusing it just for tomorrow.
Yeah. Holly.
I will say with this, something I highly recommend before playing with any timelines, unless you've done it a lot and you feel like you're really advanced at this work, is pull up your timeline first, and then kind of like a file when you're going to work on a file on a computer, save a copy of what it looks like originally, knowing that.
Thank you. Yes.
If I play with it this way, I can experiment. And if I don't like it, I can always go back to where it was. And then if I play with it here, something else I played with that has had some interesting results. You can put your timeline in your heart. You could also put it in your 3 brains. You can also put it in your chakras. So highly recommend playing around with that. Put it in your third eye, put it in your, your
Can you elaborate, Holly?
Just the ones that heart seems to make a lot of people feel really good. When I have people put it in their heads, that's one of the 3 brains: the head, the heart, and the gut. When they put it in their head, it's kind of like expands their awareness and their understanding. But a fun place to be to put it in the third eye. And if you think about it, you get kind of like a mixture of 2 things going on. So the third eye is experiencing the timeline, but the timeline's also experiencing the third eye. So though, the energy is kind of infusing, so when you pull it back out, it can still take all that energy. Another thing that somebody wants to, I don't know how the geometry works, but it's a very advanced geometry to put it in all of the chakras simultaneously. Kind of like a DNA strand. So you know how DNA has the same pattern repeating over and over and over again? So it's like basically my timeline repeating over and over again in a helical spiral that goes up through all of my chakras, kind of thing. So I mean, like, the possibilities are probably. Make sure you have that original copy. Wait, you could go reinstall that original version if you play with it in a way that just doesn't sit well with you.
Yep. That's the beauty of experimentation and metaphors and analogies, because if you can dream it, you can do it. If you can feel it, you can fuel it. Ooh.
It's on recording. It's on recording.
But that's what a lot of this is about. It always cracks me up when people like, "Oh, I don't like being hypnotized." I'm like, "So you never go to the movie theater?" What? You don't like listening to music? Well, what? You avoid churches and political speeches and the advice you got from friends and family at all costs? What? Doesn't matter what you call it. Perceived perception. It's all movies. Totally hypnotic. That's why you go there. So that you can go into trance and enjoy something through the filter of the entertainer. That's why oftentimes the movie feels like it was 10 minutes long, especially if it's a really good one. Like, it's over already? Oh, I gotta go to the bathroom. Holy cow, it's been 2.5 hours? That was a 2.5 hour movie? The only way you know is because your bladder's like, yeah, and you drank a tankard of soft drink. I know. First time I saw what was Russell Crowe's uh, well, he was back in the day where he was a sword
Gladiator?
fighter. Gladiator. Oh my! I have such a love-hate relationship with that movie. That oh yeah, I did not know that it was a 3-hour movie. I was just told that we're going to go see it. So I had a couple of refreshments before we got there. Ordered the small tankard of refreshment there. And I don't like leaving movies if I don't have to. So about at the hour 45 minutes, I'm like, this should be over pretty soon. I gotta go to the bathroom. 2-hour mark, I'm like, really? I gotta go to the bathroom. 2.5-hour mark, I'm like, for real? Like, I gotta go now. 2 hours 50 minutes, literally. I don't want to feel vibrations. Nobody better touch me. I will explode. It will get nasty around here. I'm so sorry. Movie finally finishes and I can barely walk. Trying to get up, I'm like, oh God, it's been 3 hours. Oh, this is no. I am one big bladder about to explode. Don't bump into me. I'm sorry. And I get there, and of course the line, because it's a 3-hour movie, is only around the block. And I moved so slow that the guys that already went twice were able to rush up to the bathroom and get in line first. Not to be too graphic, but I spent enough time there that there were 2 rotations next to me. The guys that came up to me are like, for real, like we could hear it the whole time. Like you're not just standing here reading the brick. Like I was like, I gotta go home. I think I'm hurt. I know, TMI, but there's your entertainment for the night. You're welcome. That would have been a great time for me to have known about timeline, because I could have maybe pause time or something. Anyhow, we've got 9 minis to recover from that bit of information. Anybody got any other questions, ahas, epiphanies, topics to fill in the last 9 minis of number 111? Lenora.
I had there was a squirrel took my other question, but I know Holly was talking about NDEs earlier. What are your thoughts on this? And my thoughts on an NDE is that the event is so big, and they needed such an interruption because they weren't following their purpose. They weren't following their mission, whatever it was they're here to do. And an NDE is something that comes in and helps them recalibrate and realign. Or am I making that up?
Go ahead.
I've been listening to so many of them. I think there are definitely cases where that is definitely true. There are also some people that it seems like they were living their life in just the right spot, and maybe they got advanced enough. They were allowed to get this new information because it was the only, like, it's such big information. The only way they can understand it and process it is to kind of have an NDE. I think you could, sometimes they'll be told in the NDE why they're having it. So not always, sometimes it's left to their discretion to figure it out. But I think if you listen to the story, you can often hear clues as to why that person is having that experience at that time. But that for sure is true. Like some of them have actually been told that. So that for sure is true for some of them at a minimum.
Fascinated. Totally fascinated.
That's that's also part of why you'll see like people will do such a 180 shift from the lifestyle they were leading. You know, like you get the CEO of the conglomerate that goes in and buys up businesses and tears them apart and, you know, sells them off in pieces parts to make money and doesn't care about the people who, you know, are suffering because of it. And all of a sudden has an NDE, wakes up, and there's his business partners going, "Hey, glad you're back. You got to sign these papers. We got to get these deals going through." And he goes, "You know what? I don't think I want to do this anymore. I think I'm going to be a painter." They're like, "The what? For what? What?" That's why they say that NDEs are one of the universal massive life change things that people, you know, they come out and they're just like, little reevaluation going on, and yep, things going to change. Especially when it comes to people like that have had medical issues due to lifestyle. "Dad, you got to smoke. You got to quit eating Burger King. You got to blah, 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 blah." "Yeah, I'll be fine. I'm fine. Don't be that. You know, your grandfather used to eat large sandwiches and, you know, drink pots of coffee all damn day long. And he lived to 94. And then all of a sudden, like, ah! They come out and they're like, "You know, salads sound kind of good right now. I think we can try that gym thing. I don't think I want cigarettes anymore." Took that little NDE for a little reevaluation of priority. Yes, Holly.
If I can actually get myself off mute.
There we go.
It's fictional, but if you want a really good example to think of, you know, Ebenezer Scrooge and A Christmas Carol.
Yes.
Really good example. I know, spoiler alert, I'll say that out loud, but I think the key moment for me is that moment when he walks up to his gravestone and he sees that it's him that's dead, and he starts, at least in the movie, I can't remember the book, it's been a while, but says, "Please tell me I'm not already dead. Please tell me I'm not already dead." That's the moment where it's, oh my gosh, like this is real. I have to change. I might already be dead. I might not have another chance.
Yeah. A great metaphor analogy for the whole thing. And that's kind of what Ken Guto does in his protocol with his clients is if a Christmas tree, if you got Scrooged, what would you change? And his clients get to experience that and go in and look at their life from this perspective. And he also, you know, helps people with depression and anxiety that way. Hey, take your timeline. Shh. Take a look at it this way. You're all bummed out because that bully said what to you in 7th grade? You got this much left. What do you want to do with it? That leaves us 3 minis for questions, comments, ahas, epiphanies. Anybody got anything?
The perceived perception one is just really blaring in my mind, and I just keep now almost every thought is under the microscope, or I should say, like, the not the core thoughts, but kind of the main umbrella is now under the microscope of where, and even where did you get this? Who did it come from? Is it helping you? Or is this just a perceived perception? And even, earlier I was thinking about the conference that I have coming up, and I was thinking I was nervous, and I'm like, okay, well, this is just part of the process of doing something new. You just accept the fact that you're going to get nervous. And then I thought, well, is that the perceived perception that I have, that I have to have this as part of the process? So it's such a mind twist, like just ongoing mind-bending things. Literally, yeah.
That's what happens when we turn on the light in our mind and get enlightened and get to take a look around. Yes.
I just wanted to leave this one last thought, and I probably have said it, but it's just resonating more. Nothing is more important than feeling good. That is something that I started to learn when I was hiking. And the reason I really am so happy with what I had come up with for my routine, or my attempt at committing this routine, is because I'll have negative things come up and I'll try and not feel them or until they overwhelm me. So now it's leaning more into them to get through, under, around, over, whatever it is, to feel good, because nothing is as important as feeling good. So you might have to feel less than good before you get there, but you still have to feel it.
And when you look back on your timeline at how many days, how many times you've survived rough feelings, less than positive feelings, limiting beliefs attached to feelings, you can decide which one is more. And that doesn't mean that you don't go through hard days going, I still feel great. No, you're like, this sucks, and I know that it sucks, and so I'm going to feel it right now, experience it, know that I'm going to survive it, and then I know where I want to be when I'm done feeling this way. We're going to go over time a little bit, but one of the other things about is that little aha that I got from somebody who said, so you had a bad day. Really? Like the whole day was bad? The whole day. Well, what happened? Well, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so how long did that actual interaction go on for? Well, it was only like 3 minutes. So you had a bad 3 minutes and you milked it for an entire day? Really? No, you didn't have a bad day. You had a bad 3 minutes. You milked it all day long. Which I like to joke is another reason why I'm not into sports. How many people have a bad week because of a game? I don't want a game having that much power over me. So, that brings us to another close where I get the privilege to thank you guys so much for the blessings that you've put on this platform of your time, because it's one thing I can't, even though I've taught you about your timeline, I can't go in and put a big chunk back in it. So I can only hope to improve what is there to make your offering well spent. And look forward to next week when we get to do this all over again for 112. Until then, please go out, enjoy your life, feel as good as possible, plant as many good things as you can, pay attention to your pies, know that you're not alone, that you are loved, that you are worth it. Know that my phone is always on if you need to chit chat or talk or just get something off your chest. Again, anybody that wants to do Triple P signs up in the month of November and references I heard it on Triple T, you get 50% off. Until then, for those of you on YouTube, love you, Mom. And the rest of you, love you also in a different way. Love my mama more. You guys take care. All these good. Still can't make a good heart, but you know, it's a big one. It's a big pulse. You guys rock.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, TJ. Have a great one, guys.